Next theme we are trying to look into is the executive or leadership coaching. As coaches, once if you are in a services industry, nobody has to let you know that this is the first step for you to go and talk to the leadership and convince them for this transformation journey and get that assigned to your organization. But for a person who is in the product or a captive kind of an environment, this will be part of your journey but not the initial part of it sometimes. But then this is the most difficult part, because these people, as Sanjay was saying, are the power centers, and it is very very difficult to manage or balance between not affecting their egos and also influencing them to become part of your convincing journey of the agile transformation. With that said, I would request Sanjay to start this most important executive coaching theme with the anti-patterns he had seen in his experience. Thanks, Sanjay.
Thanks, Nagini. Right, so executive coaching or leadership coaching, right? When we think about them, I think one word which comes to our mind is that, okay, what is the goal of coaches when we are talking about executives or leadership coaching, right? I think so. That is that agile leader, right? So we focus on developing agile leaders, right? So what is agile leader? I think that understanding that definition could be important context which will help us understand the anti-patterns also, right? So that has two words, right? What is agile and what is leadership, right? So there is a world of agile, there is a world of leadership, and this kind of overlaps between those two. You can think about it as a Venn diagram, right? So now agile needs leaders, like any field of transformation or operations, transforming to agile ways of working and sustaining that transformation and continuously improving in agile ways of working, you need leaders and you need leadership, right? But now if you reverse that question, do leaders need agile? The answer would be obvious, right? Yes. We have seen that, okay, work has changed over the years and decades. The workers have changed. We are all, we use our mind thinking, we are all knowledge workers. We use expertise, ideas, innovations to create value, right? And so the leader also need to be differently, because you need to lead them differently, right? So the leaders also need to develop the skills in lean and agile ways of working, understanding the values and practices of agile, and learn to lead differently, right? So leaders also need agile, right? Now, what's the role of a coach, right? Coaches, agile coaches, they come as a change agent, right? They are teachers, trainers, mentors, they are practitioners, they are facilitators, they are catalysts to bring a change, right? But in any organization, as Nagini mentioned also, is that the lasting change comes only when the leaders are on board, when the leaders themselves change and they bring the change, right? So leaders must lead the change. They must lead by examples, and coaches' role is to bring that awareness that what could be changed, what needs to be changed, and bring and facilitate that change, right? Now that all sounds all good, right? But when reality hits the road, that's where the anti-patterns emerge, right? So some of the anti-patterns which I have noticed is that coaches, right, when they go and start engaging with the leaders, they're trying to impress them, right? They're trying to look good, and they're trying to boost the leader's ego, because again we are humans, right? Coaches are humans, right? We have aspirations, we succumb to pressures, we have our own ambitions, we have biases, we want to please the power, right? So sometimes rather than coaching, they get into the pleasing the leaders, right? The people in the power, and then we get influenced by that, right? Now there is a kind of a thin line, right? I mean, sometimes we have to listen to the leaders also, because we get the purpose, the vision, all of that clarity of direction from the leaders. But there are certain areas where, and I think Anu talked about some of those, that okay, oh, this doesn't work here, or this would not work here. When we start listening to that and we start agreeing to that, we lose our balance, right? So we get influenced by that, right? So that is an area where coaches have to assert themselves. Coaches need to have the clarity of the boundaries between where the leader's voice has to be listened in, and where coaches have to bring in the changes, where there is a need for a change also, right? So that having awareness of these, and then taking responsibility also, right? Because it requires courage, it requires responsibility or ownership or accountability to be taken, right? And then having an adult conversation, right? And not just listening and accepting the how it is working or how it will not work, because that will be counterproductive, right? So that is one important anti-pattern, that trying to look good and then trying to please and then boost leaders' ego, right? So that's what I have noticed quite often.
Thank you, Sanjay. Nivati, do you want to add your experiences here?
Yes, I think many times in the process of changing the system, we get influenced by the system itself, right? So, the one of the things is you are trying to coach the leaders to be more agile, and you get drawn into the organizational dynamics. I don't like using the word politics generally. So the dynamics of the system, and you start being influenced by the system itself. And what happens as a outcome of that is we start taking ownership for the transformation of their teams. And I hope everybody here agrees that okay, when we are trying to transform a team, the ownership for the transformation should rest with the leaders of those teams, because they understand what they are trying to accomplish from the transformation. They understand what value they generate, what purpose they serve within the organization, and how they want to transform. So we as coaches are there to facilitate that transformation. But because we are drawn into the organizational dynamics and the influence of the system itself, what we try to do is we try to take the ownership for their transformation. And what it does is it then starts becoming our own challenge. And then you see another anti-patterns of, or we hear most of the times that the leaders are not participating in the transformation, right? One of the major reasons for that is us taking the ownership for transformation. I am here to transform. I am the superhero that is coming into the system, whether it's a Batman or a Superman or whatever the favorite characters are, and I am here to make this change happen. We are there to make that change happen through them, right? So that is the one of the important points. So one of the things, and everyone has this problem of the leader saying, you are an agile coach, we hired you for helping us transform, so it is your ownership to transform. And I had the same problem. Then what we did is we conducted a workshop for the leaders to say, okay, that's fine. So you say I'm the person to transform your teams. Okay, can you outline what is that your teams need to change and what is that they need to accomplish through this transformation? So what you want us to influence them on? And as usual, we got loads of chart papers filled in that okay, this is what we want them to change, XYZ. And the question I asked after that is, okay, where are you? And their question was, what do you mean, where are you? No, where are you in this whole structure? Are you part of this team? Are you someone completely outside of the team? Where do you consider yourself? Right? And when that question is asked, that is when they started reflecting, okay, when I say my team as a leader, are you not part of the team? So where are you as a leader? So if that awareness is not there, and then we start asking questions that, okay, now you are saying, okay, I am part of the team. So if the team has to change so many things, what is that you need to change so that you facilitate this change, right? And then the ownership starts shifting, and then you see more participation because they understand it is for them to make that change happen. We are there to facilitate and do everything that is required of us in terms of playing multiple roles that we talk about, whether it is coaching, mentoring, facilitating, or training, a number of roles. But that is something which needs to be pushed back rather than being influenced by the system, and start taking ownership for that, their transformation itself. So you become the leader, whereas you don't have any control over what happens within that team or that particular business unit, right? So that is one of the major anti-patterns that I normally see, and that's how I handle.
That was wonderful, Murthy. So, Sanjay, do you want to conclude this theme of executive or leadership coaching before we jump into the next one?
Thanks, Nagini. Maybe I'll ask Anu if you want to add anything, Anu. Yeah.
Yes, please. Thank you so much, Sanjay. Sanjay, you spoke about how a coach wants to try and tease the leaders, and Nivarti spoke about how the leaders actually put in pressure for the coach to transform the teams. So what I will focus now will be on how a coach wants to call or wants to pose themselves as a successful coach in front of the executives, right? So, I've seen this person who actually came from outside, and he was specifically brought in because he was a very successful coach in another transformation. So as soon as he was brought in, he made this lovely chart. He actually put in a roadmap on how this whole team will get transformed. Everything looked good on the paper, and he actually spoke about his experience as well. But mind you, it actually did not take the correct context into account. He did not buy in people. He did not get the trust of the people. And obviously, there was no support. And he wanted to prove, because he was a successful coach, he was brought in for this reason. He wanted to prove himself. So he was trying to, if I want to take an analogy, he wanted to actually serve the old wine in a new bottle, right? It looked so jazzy. But then in the process, neither the team was happy, nor the leadership team or the executives who actually brought him were happy. Sometimes this also leads to a full-fledged drama triangle, right? So the coach is initially a rescuer. He's trying to rescue the team so that the teams can actually follow the agile ways of working. And then for a period of time, he realizes that he's either not getting the good amount of recognition he wanted to get it, or he's not successful. And then he actually plays a victim card. So we all need to be really, really aware of how we can actually get dragged into being these successful coaches. To overcome this scenario, I think what is more important is that we would want to orient everyone to take personal responsibility for their attitudes, actions, outcomes. We all know mindset change takes time. So give ourselves that time as well, and not serve the old wine in the new bottle. Over to you, Sanjay, for wrapping up this.
Thank you, Anu. Right. So I think I'll quickly summarize this. I think Nagini started this theme with a critical point that it is difficult area for coaches also, but at the same time it is probably the most what you can say is it's the highest leverage area, right? if you can make a difference here, if you can make an impact here in executive coaching or leadership coaching, the chances of the transformation success greatly improves, right? So how do you do that, right? I mean, so I think for coaches is that it's develop greater awareness about the anti-patterns. Nivarti talked about a couple of very important things. When you ask a question to a leader that where are you in that the picture which you created for the teams, it takes courage, right? So develop courage as a coach. It's very, very important, right? And then develop clarity of the boundaries of responsibility, right? So there are leaders' responsibility, there are your responsibility. So have that nuanced clarity, nuanced understanding of that responsibility as well, right? And then develop professional coaching skill. I mean, nothing will further your cause then becoming a good professional coach. I mean, have a powerful questions, develop skill that as well, right? And then many models to help leadership because they would like to talk in that language, right? So developing a professional coaching skill can take you a long way. So, and take action. That is how I would conclude. Thanks.
Thank you, Sanjay. So I see that the last theme is the hardest for anybody, because accepting that we have to improve ourselves after you reach a point in the coach journey is itself a big lesson to learn. Even a normal individual, if you say you have been in this journey for so many years but still you have something to learn, nobody is ready to agree to that. But being in the coach role, I feel the self-coaching is the most difficult thing to accept and go ahead with, because always as a human being, we are biased with the positive feedbacks and we don't even question ourselves where we have done a mistake or something like that. So in that context, I see this self-coaching is kind of the greatest stage for anybody to improve themselves. The inspect and adapt from the agile mindset has to be implied for us as well. So with that, I would invite Nivarti to start the conversation and some anti-patterns we have.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect cue for where Sanjay left it, right?
Yeah.
So, being a coach is more about unlearning than learning, and I'm not telling this to make a case for my book, but it is the case, and I strongly believe in that, because if you want to really be a coach, you need to get rid of or let go of all the notions, all the behaviors, all the habits that you have, all the beliefs, all the limitations that you have, and looking inward is the most difficult thing. It's always easy to possibly tell 100 things about the person in front of us, but even if you stand in front of a mirror, you will always focus on what looks good rather than what doesn't, right? So I always feel I'm the most smartest person when I stand in front of the mirror. So but that doesn't always is the case when you look at someone like a Tom Cruise or Daniel Craig, then you realize you don't stand anywhere, right? So the best thing that we need to do as coaches is to consistently reflect on who we are, and this is where I think one of the major anti-patterns, if I may talk about it, right, is to just people focus a lot on the process of coaching rather than being a coach. Right? Coaching is, yes, we need to start off when you talk about initially practicing coaching, you start off focusing on the process. That's how the Shuhari model works, right? But as you go forward into the coaching, it's all about integrating those elements or those competencies into your personality, right? It's not about, again, checking the box of the GROW model. Okay, did I ask a question on goal? Did I ask a question on where you are? And did I ask a question on willingness to change? Right? And did I think discuss about opportunities, and I'm done. So then what you are actually doing is just touching the surface of the person than actually trying to understand the person itself, right? So we need to understand what we are coaching people on. Are we coaching the people on what they are doing, or we are coaching the people on who they are and what their belief systems are, right? The major thing that is part of coaching is what drives your behaviors is who you are, which means whatever my beliefs are, whatever my assumptions are, whatever my limitations are, that is what is driving my behaviors. That is what is driving the aspirations that I want, right? If I have a belief that I can never be a good swimmer, I will never ever put a goal of winning a swimming championship, because that's my limiting belief that I cannot swim, right? So then if you're trying to coach me on what I want to get without understanding the underlying drivers or the desires that I have to really go after that, what happens is we as human beings fall short of accomplishing what goals we set. The most successful people that we see accomplishing everything that they aspire for, they have the right motivation, they understand what motivates them towards accomplishing that goal. So in this context, there is a great book if you want to read as coaches by Marcia Reynolds, who is the master coach, Coaching the Person, Not the Problem. We always focus on the surface of the human iceberg model and not really focus on identifying the person. That also is driven by sometimes our own limitations of being fearful of whom we find there, right? And whether I am as a coach in a position to manage that conversation with the person rather than the problem, because it is very easy to talk about the problem than talk about the person and the problem the person has in his or her personality. So that's one definite anti-pattern I see from a coaching point of view. I think we have another 9 minutes, so we would quickly look to conclude on that and then take up some questions or conversations. Yeah, over to you, Sanjay. You are on mute, Sanjay.
Mute.
Oh, thanks, Timothy. Right. One of my favorite anti-patterns on self-coaching, and the reason is that I have been guilty of it, and I still am, right? I mean, I have to overcome that, right? It's like afraid of feedback, right? Or not having someone who can observe you in action and share the feedback, right? So I think that is an anti-pattern which we notice, right? And why it is a favorite? Because it's easiest to ignore, right? Because there is no other accountability, right? Here, there is no one to be accountable for but to yourself. And then I think some wise person has said that you are the easiest person to fool yourself, right? We take ourselves for granted, and that kind of becomes harmful, right? Most of the times, right? So many times we think that I know it all, I can reflect it, I have that inner voice that would guide me. That is all okay, but then only okay if you listen to that inner voice and then take some action, right? But having someone observe you in action and then bring that awareness, it brings the many blind spots which otherwise are very difficult to notice, right? So having someone observe you in action, share the feedback, and then take that feedback for your improvement is a thing to do, right? And then if you want to improve, I think it's an important anti-pattern to overcome as well. With that, I hand it over to Anu. Yeah.
Just one point, Sanjay. One thing I also have seen is even when we want to get feedback, right, we stop ourselves from going to someone whom we know will give a
Will give us,
negative.
yeah, that's correct.
That just wanted to add that dynamic. We go to people for feedback whom we are very clear that we will get positive feedback. So that's something in the mix as well. Yeah, I know. Over to you. Sorry,
Yes,
I
yes.
couldn't stop myself.
Thank you, Nivarti. And I was exactly pointing at that because Sanjay actually spoke about how not taking an action leads to self-destruction. So I wanted to take one step back and then talk about how we are all humans, right? Coaches are also humans. We also want to listen to, feel to, hear to all good positive feedbacks. So we want to actually rest on laurels, which we've got over a period of time. We want to take feedback from people whom we know will definitely give us some positive feedback so that we can actually feel happy, we can boost our egos. Obviously, it's a big anti-pattern. So, what could we do about it? Go seek feedback from everyone, right? One of the reasons why we may not go to everyone is that either we feel that their knowledge and skill sets may not be up to my level, they might not have seen my work, or like they're not there yet, or I know I hate this guy, if I go to him for sure he will actually give me negative feedback. So those are some of the reasons, right, which we actually console ourselves with and say that yeah, that's why I actually went to XYZ person or not to ABC person. That will hamper our own self growth. So some of the ways to overcome is that you go seek feedback from everyone, and not necessarily everyone would have known your work, everyone knows the context. So analyze whatever feedback you've been given and then take actions. And I would suggest that when you're analyzing the feedback, there may be 10 feedbacks which you also agree with are the areas of growth, and obviously you can't work on all the 10 feedbacks. So list out what are those top 1 or 2 feedbacks you want to work on. Sanjay touched upon a good point there about the accountability partners, right? So, for example, if I want to work on my speaking skills, right, I will actually go and announce it in the team that I want to work on my speaking skills. And whenever I'm not great at speaking, you can actually put your hand out or you can ring a bell. You can actually let me know that I've not done a great job. So all of them can become my accountability partners, not 1, 2, but the whole team can actually become my accountability partners. And reflection journals are a great way to actually reflect on how you're progressing on your own growth items. With that, while positive feedbacks are important, that will motivate you. Take all kinds of feedback, analyze, and then work on 1 or 2 at a time. Over to you, Nagini.
Thank you, Anu. Anivati, you wanted to wind it up and go for the questions?
Yeah, absolutely. I think great points from everyone on self-coaching, and it's the most hardest thing to do. So we do talk about looking at how do you develop self-awareness, right? That's one of the things that most people ask. Of course, there are feedbacks. Of course, there are reflections that you do. What do you reflect upon is the major point. Are you reflecting upon only your laurels? Are you reflecting upon something that you have not done better as well? So what is that in the mirror you want to see? The most smartest person in the room that is there, or you want to look at what flaws you have developed as a person in that mirror? So you will see what you want to see in the mirror.
Okay.
The reflection remains the same, but it's about what you really want to see. If you want to grow as a coach, you need to see yourself as a whole person, and not just the best part of you that you want to see, right? So that's what I would leave you all with.
That's an excellent point, Nivati. I agree with you on that. While we sometimes when you are self-reflecting, you always confine to the professional growth you have and not actually take into account your personal growth or personal flaws, which may have an impact on your journey as a coach. Thank you for that insightful discussions. I think we have some questions on the chat window. The first question is about the metrics, Anu, which you have mentioned. What about when the top management demanding that flashy metrics to be good, the efficiency and utilization? How do you explain it to in their term as a Scrum Master?
Sure. I think that's where the coaching skills comes into picture, right? So sometimes it's a give and take as well. So it's not that you can actually go and say, you know what, I'm a Scrum Master, I've done these certifications, and somebody else told me that metrics are not required, and hence I'm not going to actually present to you any sort of metrics. What is more important is understanding the perspective from where the other person is coming from, understanding why that particular metric is important for that particular stakeholder. There might be relevant reasons on why he's asking you for that. If that's the case, it is better. We keep telling that, instead of actually talking about velocity, don't talk about velocity because velocity does not give you much of it, but talk about how you have improved, how your own squad has improved for a period of time, and don't compare it with other squads. But we always see that, right? Organizations come up with this idea of actually standardizing everybody. We want to know what's the average velocity our tribe has got or our organization has got. These do take time. Like any other coaching, it is not that there's a magic wand. You can actually coach your stakeholders in a day and they agree to you. Take your time, analyze, but before even giving suggestions, analyze from where they are coming from, and then you will be in a better position to put forward your case.
Thank you, Anu. Excellent answer. I think there is a next question from Advika. The previous question was from Andrew. Thank you for that wonderful question, Andrew. And the question from Advika is, as a coach in a service-based organization, you have deadlines and maturity levels to be met at team levels. How do we let the client know each team has its own pain areas and may not all of them can run at the same pace and reach the maturity levels? One of the biggest anti-pattern which I see at leadership level while trying to bring transformation. Sanjay, you want to take that?
So I don't know whether the context and the question are related. Right? Probably I could not very clearly understood that part. But the biggest coaching anti-pattern, right? I mean, with the leadership, which we discussed also, is that coaches getting influenced by the organizational dynamics, and then they and sometimes it is more problem for maybe internal coaches, right? Internal coaches, which they are a part of the organization and they are as a part of the organizational dynamics, organizational hierarchy. They find it difficult to coach a senior leader. It does require courage. It does require sometimes taking risk, and it does require bringing that or having that clarity of the boundary of your responsibility versus leader's responsibility, right? So that is an anti-pattern with respect to executive coaching, and especially for an internal coach. I don't know whether Nivarti or Anu, you would like to take, probably I understood.
Yeah, I think just to add to you what you said, Sanjay, I think one of the things there is, again, when we say how do we let client know or the leader know, that means we have taken the ownership on ourselves to let that communications happen, right? So how do you involve them? Because it is a problem within their teams. So why you as coach need to make that communication happen, that comes in when you have not actually involved possibly the leadership or the management at the right level within the transformation journey. So the root cause of this particular question is what we need to address rather than the question itself, because the question will get addressed if you are able to understand
the cause of it. Okay. Thank you for adding that.
Yeah, we have a question from Shona. I think this is a question or some kind of an observation. I have seen a coach, an agile coach, getting very frustrated when they make a suggestion to a team and the team is not ready to make that change. I think it tends to come from this feeling of accountability for the team to look good for their leaders.
Yeah, I think it was more of a comment on.
There is a follow-up question.
Yeah.
We always put into place a coaching contract with the product owner and the team so that the expectations are as clear as they can be at the onset. When we then work to update it along the way, it's been quite successful. Thank you for sharing your experience, Shauna.
Yes. I think that's a good practice to have working agreement, right? And then it's again not a legal document. It is something which you continuously evolve and then reflect on it, right? Yeah.
So Michelle has some kind of coaching means also explaining why something should be improved and what are the advantages. Agree with that. And thanks for the comments, Andri. Wisdom in the chat. Change starts with itself, Karthik. And we see Shona again. It can be so hard to draw the line between coaching a team or a person and providing them your view of how to solve the problem.
Yeah, agree. And I think we had Karthik's hand up. Karthik, anything you want to ask or mention?
Yeah, I just want to share. First of all, thanks everyone for sharing your views. This is very insightful. I'm as an agile coach. I'm a practitioner for last 10 years. Very passionate about agile, and so my 2 cents here is the anti-pattern which I kind of observed initially when I started practicing as an agile coach, because I also come from a traditional program manager background. So we always tend to give solutions, telling instead of asking. So this could be beneficial for those who are aspiring as an agile, want to aspire as an agile coach. My 2 cents is like, try to get prepared before you launch yourself into this field, right? Because every field requires some kind of a preparation, training, acquiring the right knowledge, and that is very important. So the mistake I did, I was like, I was passionate, so I jumped on this field directly. I got an opportunity, I directly jumped onto it. Though I kind of did not become an agile coach overnight, I did play all the role, like what Anu has said. It's the same case with me as well, learning step by step, right? But I'm just sharing my 2 cents here, like since those who are coming from traditional background will definitely understand what I'm saying, we intend to give a solution quickly. And also the other anti-pattern I want to highlight is, as agile coach, I've learned it over a period of time, listening, right? Very powerful. If we listen patiently, I think that is one thing as an agile coach we need to develop, and I'm still working on it, right? Listening is one key skill that applies to all the level of coaching that we have, be it team of team or individual or self or executive leadership. Like, listening is one thing. I've seen people who just hear but not listen.
Yeah, great points, Karthik.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing. And just to add on that listening part, right? So what are you listening for is more important than listening itself. So there are many things you can listen for. So what are you listening the conversation for? That's an anti-pattern as well. So just keep that in mind when I have conversations. Someone is speaking and I am listening. Why am I listening? For what intent I have behind that listening? Yes.
Thank you. Jyoti Bajpai has one question. Anyone who wants to pick this can answer. What are the methods available to find these anti-patterns other than running multiple metrics?
I think that's Anu's area of expertise.
Go for it, Anu.
Thank you so much. So actually what we have done is we have conducted some surveys. Through surveys, you will actually get to know, you've got your retrospectives from where you can actually talk about the anti-patterns. So anti-patterns actually emerge from a lot of areas, even just a daily stand-up, right? You can actually figure out the anti-patterns. And most importantly, what we generally do as coaches is that, we are good at recognizing the anti-patterns of the team or a scrum master or a product owner, because that's our forte, right? We are very good. We've been taught to do that, and we actually execute it to the perfection. But what's also important is that when you're showing up in these conversations, you reflect yourself on how did you show up, what kind of anti patterns did you show. Sometimes you might not have clearly showed it, but it was emerging, the desire to actually lead to the results, or instead of giving options, telling the team that you will have to do this because these are wonderful results which will come out of this event. Those are all anti-patterns. So most importantly, being self-aware, reflecting, running through some of the surveys, asking for feedback will all help you understand anti-patterns emerging out of you as well.
Thank you. I want to take this last question, Nivati, from Remy. As an external coach, how might you consider trying to develop ourselves? Techniques to learn, possibly training to consider?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that we are seeing now, at least as a positive trend, is that people are focusing more on professional coaching competencies as well within agile coaching. I'm not saying there were not earlier, but now we are seeing that trend to be quite growing. So one of the things, whether you are an external coach or an internal coach, is when you are looking at self-development, how far you want to develop yourself as a coach, because developing your practices and processes, knowledge on frameworks that we have, n number of frameworks, and every day another one keeps popping up. So it's more of a journey of being a coach. So for that, if you are really looking at improving your professional coaching competencies, I would say embark on a journey with ICF. There are many institutions that are, promoting ICF coaching. So you can start with associate certified coach, and there are 3 levels, of course: professional certified coach and master certified coach. So you can look up to those trainings, which you can consider based on how far you want to go from that point of view. And it's all about practice. And I saw a comment there as well. It's about practice and practice. So how many hours of practice can you really put in to be a coach? And like transformation, being a coach is a journey without any destination. So it's a lifelong process of continuously unlearning and finding and revealing the not so better version of yourself to yourself.
Any last question from anybody directly? You can unmute yourself and ask before we wind up. I think we are good. And thank you for the wonderful insights, Nivati, Anu, and Sanjay. Had a great discussion and a lot of inputs and participation from our lovely audience. I also love the webinar, as Advika is loving it. Thank you, and thanks for making us all just rethink about all these anti-patterns and be aware when we are trying to be on the field again. With that said, thank you for being part of this panel discussion. Anything as a last word from each of you would be welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Nagini, for making it happen. I think you initiated the conversation and pulled us all together. So thanks a lot. And it's great to see, as I said, it's not an exhaustive list. This is something which we could share today. There might be a few more we can connect and discuss on to,
if you can quickly put your LinkedIn IDs on the chat window, if anybody is interested, can connect to you three.
Yes. Yeah, of course. I think, yes, they can definitely connect with us on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Guys, we are there to connect and take these conversations another step ahead. If you are interested, just feel free to connect to us on LinkedIn, and we can keep connected and discuss more as the time permits. And thank you again for being wonderful audience and for all the wonderful insights you three of us given us. And see you sometime soon, somewhere in the other seminars or wherever we are going to meet each other. Thank you all. Have a great day ahead, or great night, or evening, whatever is your time.
Yes.
And just log into Meetup and select any of the other events you are interested in. Have plenty of learnings in your account. All are free. Please support our speakers as well. Thank you for that session. I think we are good to close.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
Have a
so
great
much.
day.
Love you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.